Thank you. I'm very happy to be in Berlin. This is actually, believe it or not, a homecoming for me. I was born in Germany, which I guess around here is probably not all that unique, but I have spent some time traveling, and this is my first time in Berlin, but very excited to be here today talking to you about building a startup team. Startups, you really only have two things when you get going. One is your idea, and two is your team. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but there's a pretty good chance that your idea sucks. Very few companies end up actually building the product or service or company that they set out to build. You know, ideas tend to change, new technologies come out, competitors enter the market, you get customer feedback, and your idea will morph. And if you talk to any investor, the first thing they will say is that they're ultimately investing in the people first. And the idea, a bad idea well executed will beat a great idea poorly executed. So to prepare for this, I sat down with all of our executive team. So our executive team, we've reached a point now where we've assembled a cast that has worked for some pretty impressive companies. Jaleh Bisharat, the top left, she was the VP of marketing for Amazon, reported directly to Jeff Bezos. Our executive chairman there, top middle, Thomas Layton, he was the co-founder of CitySearch. He was CEO of OpenTable. He was CEO of MetaWeb, which was acquired by Google. Our VP of product and VP of operations were both at PayPal and then left to help build Zong, which then got acquired by PayPal. And our CFO was on the board of Netflix and Expedia, and he's currently on the board of Kayak. So we have a team that has built companies. They've seen a lot of companies go from startups to well-known businesses. And what this presentation is really a combination and distillation of some of their best thinking about what it takes to build a really great startup team. So the first thing that emerged in talking to everybody is that great startups come from great co-founders. And one of the questions I asked, this is Stratis, one of our co-founders, he's based in Athens, Greece. One of the questions we asked him was, well, do you even need a co-founder? So we've got some video here. Let's hear what he had to say. Nope. Let me get the audio. I knew there was at least a 25% chance of this video working.
So, working with somebody that you trust, somebody that ideally has been a friend that you work well together with, will allow you to share, will allow you to celebrate the good times, will allow you to survive the hard times.
Yeah. So the first part of what he said is, building a startup is, as many of you know, is it's painful, it's exhausting, there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of struggle. You've got guys like me standing up on stage telling you your idea sucks before I've even heard it. You'll have a lot of, it's just very hard to do alone. And for a couple different reasons that I'll discuss, it's having a great co-founder is really important. And
yes, you do need a co-founder.
One more time. There we go. So as we talked about what makes a great co-founder, a couple things emerged. One is the two co-founders have a really strong personal relationship. Starting a company, there are a few things more difficult than starting a company. And if you don't have a great relationship from the very beginning, you are going to struggle. And I went through a situation with a company I helped grow where we didn't have a great, strong personal relationship. The CEO and I, when things were great, we were great. When the company started to struggle and our market literally evaporated overnight, we didn't have a personal relationship to fall back on. And we fell apart, and the company fell apart. And having a long history and a long personal relationship, Stratis and Odysseus have been friends since growing up. And what Stratis will tell you is, I've had lots of friends, but Odysseus and I were the ones that we talked about business. I talked with other friends about sports or girls or school. Odysseus and I talked about business ideas. So when it came time to start oDesk, they had a very strong platform to start from. Complementary skills. You can't have two guys who just want to sit in the closet and code. Somebody's got to be out there talking to customers, somebody's got to be coding, somebody's going to be talking to lawyers, somebody's got to be doing the operations behind the scenes. You need skills that complement each other. And it also allows you to design, to develop barriers, or at least swim lanes. So with Stratis and Odysseus, they're both great engineers. They're both exceptional from a technology perspective, but they sort of agreed that Odysseus was a little better at the business and strategy stuff. Stratis was going to take the lead on the technology decisions, and it just gave them each their own domain. So, they had input on everything, but ultimately, for technical decisions, Ty went to Stratis. For business decisions, the Ty went to Odysseus. So this complement of skills allowed them to make the sum greater than the parts. And a shared passion. You've got to go into this knowing how hard it's going to be. We'd all love to stumble into an Instagram and have 12 months and $1 billion exit. But more likely than not, you're looking at 5, 10, potentially 15 years of working together. If you're not passionate going in and you don't have a shared interest and a common goal, it's going to be really difficult. And so as we talk through this, and I talked to both Odysseus and Stratis and some of the other members of our exec team that have founded companies, it really is like a marriage. And I love watching these talk shows where they show the couple, and the guy was cheating on the girl, but they figured, well, let's get married, things will stabilize. And oh well, we had a rocky marriage, but we figured if we started having a bunch of kids, that would make things easier. If you're not having a ton of fun when you're dating, don't get married. And if your marriage isn't really, really solid, don't have kids. I have 4 kids. It doesn't get any easier. I think that's a testament to how much fun we had when we were dating, that we've gone that far, and we're still, she hasn't smothered me in my sleep. So when you think about starting a company, it really is a long-term commitment. You really do need that relationship. You need the complementary skills, and you need a shared passion about where you're headed. So to wrap this up, Odysseus was a little camera shy, so we couldn't get him to do this on video. But I just thought this was a phenomenal quote. So if you can't read it, there were things that I didn't know how to do very early on. I knew I couldn't go from 0 to 1 if I didn't have someone who could complement my high entropy, high energy style by grounding it with an entropy reducing style. With him, Stratis, I went from 0 to 1 and then 1 to 12, where otherwise I'd still be making circles around my 0. So I think this is just a great illustration of how important having a great co-founder was to oDesk. The second thing, as you start to bring on your team, the best thing you can hire early on are customer-centric utility players. So the term utility player, it's an American baseball term. Utility player can play any base. You can put them on third, you can put them in the outfield, you can put them at first. They're going to be equally effective no matter where they are. And early on in a startup's history, you have to have people who can cover a lot of ground. You can't yet afford to have specialists. Yes, you're going to be my front-end developer, but I need you to run the SEO campaign. Somebody's got to do it. Yes, you're going to be my operations guy, but you got to be the one who can read the contract because there's nobody else to do it. So having customer-centric utility players, and the customer centricity is really important for a lot of the same reasons that were discussed in the last panel. The people who are customer-centric figure out where the problems are. You may go in thinking you know what the customer wants, but the people who actually can watch the customer, see what they do, which is more important than listening to what they say, they're the ones who are going to find the high-value activities to be working on. So third part is understanding the organization you're building. So this is what, this for me is one of my points of emphasis. This is what I call the functional org chart. So when you see an org chart like this, what's notable is there are no names. There are no bodies assigned to the work. And this functional org chart is the exact same today as it was when I started 3.5 years ago. So it's about what work needs to get done, not who is doing the work. I think one of the #1 mistakes startups make is they say, all right, here's the cast of characters we have. Now, what are the optimal things for these people to be working on? It should be the other way around. What work needs to get done? What are the most important things to move the business forward? And then let's assign people to them based on what skills they have. And in some cases, we don't have people that have the skills that we need based on the functions that are most important to the business. So we got to go bring them in. And I think by looking at it this way, it also gives you a roadmap of what you're growing into. So again, when I started customer service, we had a director of customer service and we had 20 customer service reps. We had 1 person trust and safety and 3 trust and safety reps. Business development and enterprise, I did myself. And over time, it goes from a fractional headcount of 1/4 of a person to a full person to a team of people. But the function stayed more or less the same. So by thinking of your your operation in this way, it gives you a much clearer roadmap of how you're going to grow your business. And as you think about that, what you hire will shift over time. So the analogy we use is going from the jungle to the dirt road to the highway. And the skills you hire early on, you need someone to help you survive in the jungle. That's that customer-centric utility player. The person who can help you survive in the jungle may not be able to drive the Porsche on the highway very well. So the type of person you're going to hire will shift. And it will also generate some painful decisions because the person you hired to help you in the jungle may not be a fit when you get to the highway. And they may be better suited and more successful going back to another company where they can be in the jungle. So thinking of that transition as you grow, it's an important thing to keep in mind as you start to build your early team. Number 4, no one should be a better recruiter than your executive team. So this is Greg Stanger, our CFO. As I mentioned, he was on the board of Netflix, and he had a front row seat to how they grew their business. So let's hear from him.
One of the very best managed companies that I've ever been associated with is Netflix. And Reed Hastings, the CEO of Netflix, had this idea that he wanted to, as the company grew, have greater and greater talent density so that the average employee was more and more talented as the company grew. And what that enabled the company to do is to have fewer and fewer rules and policies and procedures and more communication and alignment. And that enabled the company to be a high-performing company, an extraordinarily high-performing company, even as it became very large.
So when you think about recruiting, and particularly being the co-founder or an early exec at a startup, great people have a lot of options available to them. And for oDesk, we're in the heart of Silicon Valley. We're competing with Google, with Facebook, with Apple. You've got the chromed slide down to your premium coffee bar. oDesk does not yet have a slide or a coffee bar. You get the foam pit with the aquarium to take a nap in. We don't have those either. So these big companies have a ton of resources. They have a lot of opportunity to offer great candidates. So how do you sell against that as a startup? The first thing is you've got to be able to sell the impact. And impact comes in 2 forms. One is the impact of that person's role on the company. Everybody wants to feel like their job is important and it's essential. And if I got hit by a bus, which the more time I spend in London, the more likely that is because I keep looking the wrong way, the impact, if I got hit by a bus, I want to know that everybody's going to feel it. If I disappeared one day and it was met with a collective yawn internally, I'd be pretty upset about that. I want to know that what I do every day matters to our business. It's also the impact of the company on the world. To the extent that you can elevate the mission of your business, for oDesk, it's changing the way the world works. We're bringing access to talent and access to jobs to people who wouldn't or otherwise have it. And it's easy for us to pitch the impact by telling very personal stories about companies that built their business because of oDesk, or individuals that were able to buy their first house because of the job they got on oDesk. So by elevating the impact of our business overall, it makes them feel like they're part of something much greater. The second thing is selling the exposure. People spend a lot of money to go get their MBA so that they can get this well-rounded business education where they have finance experience and marketing and strategy, and they get to see a business and the business education from a lot of different perspectives. You're going to learn a lot more sitting in a small company or in a startup and getting that live exposure than you are in an MBA. And being able to sell that, hey, you may be running operations or doing our early development, but you're going to be sitting there while I'm negotiating the term sheet with the venture capitalist. Or you're going to hear me on the phone with the lawyer talking about our contracts. You're just going to have a lot of exposure to things that you don't have in many other companies. And then selling the opportunity. There are a lot of opportunities that the big companies go after that they have to go after it because they're big. There's this white space around a company, around big companies, of all these smaller opportunities that, PayPal and eBay and Google, they can't go after $50 million opportunities. So there's all of these smaller opportunities that a small, agile team can go nail and really generate a lot of value. And so selling the opportunity to shape a company, to influence it based on their impact and their role, that's kind of the third selling point that emerges. So number 5, this is a great tip, and this is a a particular point of emphasis of our executive chairman. He says you should never bring in a candidate until you've done at least 3 back channel references. So back channel references, I want to talk to someone you've worked with that you didn't give me. So yes, I'll ask you for your references, and you'll give me the people that you know will say nice things about you. I want to talk to the people that you didn't give me. And there's a couple tricks on generating back channel references. Obviously, number one, things like Zing and LinkedIn give you great access and great visibility into who people have worked with that you can reach out to and get a back channel reference. The other thing you can do is when a candidate gives you a reference, there's a couple questions you should always ask. Number one, who else did this person work with that can give me good insight as to their background, right? So now you've generated a fresh back channel reference. The second question I always ask is this person the best person that you've ever worked with in this role? And if they say yes, you say, really? They're really absolutely the best? And if they still say yes, okay, you got a pretty good candidate. If they say no, you say, all right, why? And who was? So now you get some meaningful feedback on the person, and more importantly, you got another candidate to source. So it's a great way to just broaden your candidate pool with someone who, and then you pick up the phone and you call that person and say, hey, Bob, I was checking references with Bob, and he said you're the best person he's ever worked with in this role. Can I talk to you? So it's just a great back channel trick. So as you start to build your team and you start to bring great people into your organization, how do you keep them? So retention of the top performers is really, really important. So we'll listen to Gary Swart, our CEO, talk about how we view retention.
Once you have the right people on your team, it's important to provide the clarity as to where the company is going and how they're going to get there. Make sure everybody's clear as to what their responsibility is, helping to achieve that vision. And then also the standards of how people can hold themselves accountable to the results. How do they know that they're doing a good job? But in addition to that, there's 4 things that I think we owe our employees. Impact, growth and development, financial reward, and balance. Making sure you have those things for your employees will ensure that you retain the best talent for a long time.
So I'll run through those quickly. So impact, we've talked about a little bit already. Making sure Can you give me a click here? So impact was the first one. Making sure that every employee knows that they have a chance to impact the future of the company and to benefit how the business grows and develops. How are we doing? Is it stuck? Let me try it. We're running out of time. All right, well, I'll skip this. So the number 7 was management by objective. Managing by objectives serves you a couple purposes. One, it allows you to reinforce the impact. When you sit down with an employee every month, every quarter, every year, and talk about specifically what their objectives are and how they're going to move the business forward, it makes it abundantly clear how they can impact the company, which is a great retention tool. It also allows you to focus on the growth and development. What are the new things they want to do? What are the areas they want to be exposed to? Making that part of a documented process allows you, again, it's another retention hook. And finally, it prevents what our VP of Marketing refers to as the bozo explosion. As companies grow and you start to bring people on, it's really easy to slip into hiring and or nurturing low performers. And managing by objectives and having very clear, delineated goals allows you to make sure that the impact is clear to everyone. And another quote that came out of the conversations about Netflix, Netflix didn't fire people because they weren't performing. They fired people because they weren't exceptional. And I think having that attitude from the very beginning and setting the bar much higher than meets expectations is really important as you build your team. And the final thing I'll leave you with is the what's called Joy's Law. And if anybody are familiar with this, Joy's Law was a quote from Bill Joy, one of the co-founders of Sun Microsystems. And it says something to the effect of, no matter who you are, most of the smartest people in the world work for somebody else. So as you think about your team isn't just the people that are sitting in your office or that you're hiring with or working with day to day. Your team, it's your board, it's your advisors, it's anyone you meet at any time. And when companies are building businesses now, they're doing it in a very different way than they used to. Because of the lower cost to deploy a product, the lower cost to get a product to market, and a change in the type of people launching businesses. The people launching businesses today are not sitting in a dark room, drinking energy drinks, eating Funyuns, and cranking out code. These are people who, they can write the code, they can do the design, they can run an SEO campaign, they can have conversations and negotiate with VCs. They're much more well-rounded than before. And so they're able to play a more central role in the development of the business. And so they're able to launch businesses that previously would have only been features and apps. And so this idea of Joy's Law and being able to dynamically pull people into your network around certain initiatives or certain products or certain feature sets, this is what we see happening on oDesk, is people are coming in and looking for ways to bring talent into their business in an on-demand way, and they may coalesce and then disband on a weekly or monthly basis. So there's a shift underway, and having Joy's Law in mind as you build your team will help you diversify the information you have coming into your business and ultimately be more successful and deliver a better product. So thank you for having me. I hope you had some takeaways. Now, one thing we wanted to ask is we wanted to make this a discussion. There are a lot of people here. A lot of people here have great ideas about tips and tricks. There's a hashtag, I think it's Startup Teams. So we'd love to see your tweets on tips and tricks you have, and then what we're going to do is take some of those best ideas and turn them into a blog and package it up. So if you have anything to contribute, we'd love to hear from you.
Fantastic.
Thank you.